While Norris and McLaren were celebrating a title, apparently there was still ongoing talks behind the scenes at Ferrari between some senior management about the idea that Lewis Hamilton might actually be dropped before the 2026 season even begins. Something that kicked off yesterday after another terrible qualifying. Let's talk about it. So look, there has been a lot of rumours and reports going around that Ferrari aren't exactly happy with Lewis Hamilton's performances. And this is not really a secret in that John Elkann himself has come out and basically said that both drivers were underperforming, something that you definitely couldn't say about Leclerc this weekend. But we know that this has been ongoing and there has been some seeming regret from Elkann over his hire of Lewis Hamilton because of the amount of cost that went into it and the return on investment just frankly not being there. However, over the last 24 hours, I have heard multiple reports and multiple people talk to me about the fact that there has been some ongoing ruckus within the Ferrari team about whether they would consider paying Lewis Hamilton off or what steps need to be taken in order to ensure they get a return on that investment. Obviously, this comes after Lewis Hamilton's really woeful qualifying performance where he was out in Q1 once again for the third time in a row, the first time that has ever happened to a Ferrari driver, if my knowledge is to come, and finishing behind Leclerc as well. Well, we'll get into Lewis Hamilton's season in a moment overall and what's led to this, but essentially the news I've heard is twofold. The first is I've heard from at least 3 different sources that there was some infighting in the Ferrari garage after qualifying itself, with Ferrari senior management having a pretty heated debate with some of Lewis Hamilton's management. I'm unsure whether Lewis Hamilton himself was there, but I know some of his management was, which makes it pretty interesting. Now, when it comes to just that itself, I wouldn't really take anything from it. He's just had a very, very bad qualifying. Some words could have been said. A debate could have kicked off. Anything could have happened from the back of just having a really poor qualifying session for the third time in a row. So that in itself is not, word of anything. But then I've heard from a couple of other people that apparently someone high up in Ferrari had an unscheduled drop-in with someone at Haas, and apparently there was an unscheduled call from someone high up at Ferrari to someone high up at Haas. Now, again, there could be multiple reasons why there would be a call between Haas and Ferrari. They are engine suppliers, they are a big customer team at Haas who heavily rely on Ferrari, and Behrman is sitting at the team. So there are multiple reasons why it could happen, but it was very, very interesting to me that you had both of these things happening, where you had this big infight between Ferrari and some of Lewis Hamilton's management team, followed up by some interesting unscheduled talks between Haas and Ferrari. Now, obviously, you'll know what I'm getting at here, which is if there was, for example, a reason to drop Lewis Hamilton for next year, given that they already have Leclerc, who's been nothing short of spectacular over this season with the machinery he's been given, why would you not put Behrman, who's been qualifying and performing brilliantly over the season, in that space, given it would cost you almost nothing, especially if you're going to have to pay out a massive fee, not that Ferrari is too worried, to Lewis Hamilton. So clearly something is going on here. Now, do I expect it to happen? Honestly, I don't think so. I think they would rather, given they're going to have to pay anyway, keep him for the next season and hope that the car is good enough or suits him well enough that he can perform. But it is interesting that from everything I'm seeing and hearing, that Ferrari are at least considering what they will do if, for example, Hamilton's form drops off. This could be, a mid-season replacement idea. It could just be lining things up for 2027 as early as possible, kind of seeing the cards in front of them. But it is an interesting one. And honestly, look, can we just be blunt here? I don't actually blame Ferrari for this one. I blame them for the performance in the car and everything they've done. What I mean is I don't actually blame them for considering a switch. And the reason I don't really blame them for considering a switch is simple. And let's be honest with yourself here, if you're a Hamilton fan, for example, if you just took the name Hamilton and switched it with Sainz and then told me that this was the season that Sainz had just had, you would all, be honest, clamour for Behrman to be put in. You'd say, well, what's the point in keeping Sainz there? You know, he's had no podiums over the season for the longest time. Like, obviously, if this was Sainz's first season, even more so because he's had the longest run without a podium for a Ferrari driver. He's the first driver in the history of Ferrari to have 3 Q1 exits in a row, as far as I'm aware. And he finished nearly 100 points behind Leclerc. So look, regardless of the difficulties of the car and so on, if that was Sainz, we would be saying it's not good enough. And at the very least, if this continues into the second season, he should be gone. Now, the problem is, imagine swapping that out with not Sainz and a driver that you're paying at least double what you're paying at least double what you're paying your lead driver to get these results. It's not good enough. And to be honest, for them to consider switching, it was not surprising to me at all. So I would be surprised, to be honest, if they drop him before the new season begins. I think they have bigger worries, but it wouldn't take me completely off guard. I think there is some rhyme to the reason. Will it happen? I don't think so, unless they can find something, unless there's a performance clause that means they can drop him, without too much money back. Or unless Hamilton decides, yeah, enough is enough. But I don't really see it happening. But this means massive pressure on Hamilton now, because if we get to 2026 and they have some difficulties with the car and Leclerc decides, I'm done, I'm out of here, I think they could very easily drop Hamilton midway through the season to get Behrman in, get him kind of built up a little bit alongside Leclerc, and then be looking at whoever else is about that, perhaps isn't in a great team anymore. A Piastri, a Norris, a Russell, an Antonelli, anyone who's not having a good time at another team, they could be looking to pick up. So I think this tells me Hamilton's days could very much be numbered, but let's see. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe. And please do check out my revived Automotive channel. I'm just trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So if 400 of you could subscribe over there, it would really help me out. And there's a new video on the transit van. And who doesn't love the transit van? Thank you for watching. Bye.